Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to get started in just a moment. We're now streaming live on YouTube and welcoming in our Zoom audience for today. Thanks for joining me. Just going to take a moment to let everybody else in. You should be able to see my screen share and my webcam in the corner of your screen, I imagine, depending on how your Zoom is set up. Okay, and it is the top of the hour. Welcome, everybody. I'm Executive Director of Conservatory Canada, Derek Auger, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the first webinar of the year here at CCTV. And thank you for joining me. This is what I like to call sort of the pre-season to the webinars, and I'll tell you later on at the end of the short presentation today what we have in store for the year. But I like to start off with a webinar or two just to meet with you and, privately like this or kind of quietly, talk about some updates from CC, review what happens over the summer, what we have planned for this coming year, take your questions, that kind of thing, and just get us really focused. I'm also planning a similar session next week. I'm just not sure on the topic yet. I'm going to run that by you and see what you all think. And so I'm looking for your feedback. I'm just going to launch a poll. A few questions for those of you that have joined me here live. Those of you that are watching after the fact, you won't get to see this poll. Just a few questions just to focus our efforts today here and make sure I understand why everybody's joining. And so those of you here, if you can just take a moment on your screen to answer the questions, I'd be quite grateful. Just looking to figure out what your main reasons for joining me today are. Wondering if you host online Zoom exams for your students at your own teaching studio, and also asking for you to rate our new teacher portal, something we've worked very hard on for the past year. And I'm going to speak to all of these things today through the agenda of what I have planned to talk about. And then, of course, I'm going to take your questions anytime. Any of you watching this on YouTube after the fact, feel free to email me your questions if the topic of conversation here stimulates something that you're not sure of or you need clarification. Feel free to reach out to me anytime by email. Derek, D-E-R-E-K, at conservatorycanada.ca. You can also reach Deborah in the office. Deborah at conservatorycanada.ca is the other person to reach out to. Okay, so most of you are just looking to hear of any updates at CC. Most of you host Zoom online exams at your own studio and mixed reviews on the teacher portal. Some of you are finding it difficult to use. Some of you are finding it on the easy side of use. It looks like almost 50-50 really. So thanks for your input on these questions. It's something we're going to reach out to you in a more dedicated survey. And one person can't get on the teacher portal. Okay, so Corinne, reach out to me and we can talk about that. That's certainly something we need to get a handle on. So I'm in Thunder Bay, Ontario, for those of you who don't know, and I host this webinar every Friday, or roughly every Friday, probably 9 out of every 10 Fridays at noon Eastern time. That way we connect with you across the country. Some of you it's morning, some of you it's afternoon now. And it's my pleasure to do so. And I look forward to doing this every Friday. We'll have a number of different guests on throughout the year. It's not often that it's just me by myself here, although I love doing these sessions by myself. Most of the sessions are going to have guests, and I think you're going to be pleased with the lineup. We have a much different lineup overall than we've had last year, or at least I have context and ideas for making it quite a bit different. And so I look forward to sharing that all with you. Here's the agenda for today. I just want to talk about an in-person exam review, what happened in June and over the summer, talk about hosting Zoom exams and how we want to try and improve that and why. Big item for discussion today, Convocation returns to London, Ontario for an in-person ceremony, first time since 2019, which we're quite excited about. Teacher and student portals, I'll talk about that a little bit, maybe do a quick demo for those who need to understand that a little better. Talk about the CI classical piano hybrid exam that's been out there for a long time. We finally have information on that actually in the syllabus files so that you can understand how that works a little better. I will talk about digital badges because I always want to talk about digital badges, and you're going to get sick of hearing this probably, but you're going to get inundated still this next coming year with information on digital badges, and I hope you'll try them out. Theory resources, CC exams and accommodations for students, something that's becoming more popular and we're getting better at handling, I feel. And then we'll talk about the CCTV YouTube channel and the webinar lineup coming up for this year. So first of all, for us, the big news over the past year was being able to return to in-person exams. Since March of 2020, all of our exams were held online. Even before that, of course, because that pandemic restricted us from doing so. And then we had a small return to in-person exams to try it out in 2022, both in February and June. And then this past year, 2023, we had a couple of centers in February that were able to hold online exams. And then we tried to roll it out broadly in June. And we were quite happy to service in-person exams in 17 different centers across the country. And I would say in the coming year, we're looking at adding at least a couple of more in there where we've got numbers and examiners available on a slightly broader level. A bit surprising that 70% of students want their exam online. Surprising and not, but we appreciate that convenience that we're able to offer, and we had been offering since 2007. But it does hurt the chances of people getting in-person exams. We just simply have to do it a different way because the number is so few. We can't afford to fly examiners across the country anymore. And even before the pandemic, that was starting to get difficult. Now it's pretty much impossible because of the smaller number. We can't amortize out the registration fees and make a balanced budget. The scale has totally shifted. And so the past year has been out figuring, are we able to even do that? I think the answer is definitely yes. We're going to continue to do that in the coming year. Not much will change. It's just we're going to make some back-end changes to our new database through the teacher and student portals so that when students are registering for those exams, it's a little more streamlined and easier for us to understand and easier for students to understand if they're actually registering for an online exam or an in-person exam. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Over the summer, I was able to travel to the CFMTA convention in Edmonton, Alberta. It was a real thrill to do that for the first time since 2019 and get to see a lot of teachers in person and other people in the industry, publishers, mainly publishers, really people that are publishing their own music. We're at the convention, workshop clinicians, and just meeting with different teachers and talking with them. A really worthwhile experience. Nice to get out there and do that again. And then a few weeks after that, by the end of July, I just so happened to get an invitation to go to the Chicago NCKP conference, the National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy in the US. It's held in a suburb of Chicago every year or every 2 years. I can't recall fully. But anyway, it was nice to connect with that sort of collegiate crowd there. A lot of people that I had met in the United States previously, but just haven't seen in a long time. And a lot of which I wanted to bring them on the webinar here. They're good researchers, people that are offering unique things and unique ideas, whether it's repertoire sessions or sharing their research. You're going to get to hear from quite a few of them over this coming year in the webinar series. So that's something I'm really looking forward to introducing a little bit what's happening on the other side of the border to us up here. Now, I want to talk about hosting Zoom exams. And of course, if anyone here in the live audience has any questions, throw them in the Q&A or in the chat box, and I'll check that periodically and I can elaborate on anything I've said. Sometimes I tend to gloss over things a little bit. And looking at the list of those of you here today, most of you sort of know already what's happening and how we do things, but I do see a few new names as well. And certainly those of you, again, who are watching this after the fact, feel free to email me your questions anytime. Hosting Zoom exam, or sorry, what are we going to talk about? Hosting Zoom exams. This is something I've got a little bit further down. So let's actually go to Convocation first. There we go. I'm getting settled on my slides. Convocation. In 2019, up until that point, we were able to host an in-person convocation and awards ceremony live in London, Ontario every year for as long as I can remember, dating back into the 1980s, if not sooner or earlier than that. And then, of course, in 2020, we had to put those plans on hold, and we've missed the last three. And so we're quite happy now that things are quite a bit more back to normal to try and host an in-person convocation event again. And we're doing so on November 18th, a Saturday, November 18th. The ceremony will begin at 2 o'clock Eastern time in London, Ontario at the Wesley Knox United Church. It's a different venue for us. We're simply going to try this out and see how it works. We're a little bit apprehensive in that, we haven't offered one in a while. Of course, we know how to do it. We're going to do it well, but we're just wondering what the travel will be like for people. Are people still willing to travel to come to this event? Previously, every year, we would have at least 1 or 2 students from every single province in Canada, which was really great. We're hoping that can continue. And at that convocation and awards ceremony, we like to honor our graduates, of which we have, I believe, 7 graduates this year receiving the ACCM, or the Associate of Conservatory Canada in Music Diploma, either performers or teachers in piano or voice. And then we're also going to award medals for excellence for the highest marks in each discipline, in each grade level, each stream of exam for each province. and we're awarding well over 150 medals this year, which is normal for us. And then we're also going to award scholarships. We have a large endowment funds from monies that were raised a few decades ago, in fact. And that scholarship fund now, I'm proud to say, is still worth well over $1.5 million. And we take the interest from that every year. Part of that is dedicated specifically to scholarships. And our usual disbursement that we disperse to students is in the range of $30,000. And so at the Convocation Awards, students will be getting their checks as well, some of the medal winners and other things. We can't give every medal winner a check, obviously. And some of the criteria left by donors, we're always honoring that criteria, and there's very strict stipulations in some cases, but we're quite happy to award this. A number of students go home quite happy with that monetary gift that allows them to continue their studies. Those monies are awarded or remunerated directly to teachers so that they can continue their studies. So that's what we do at Convocation. This is going to be very similar to other ceremonies. Those of you who've been able to check that out in the past, we were able to live stream the last couple back in 2019, 2018, even 2017, looking back at my notes. And we plan to do the same here too, so that if you can't travel to London, Ontario, you can certainly watch it right here on the CCTV YouTube channel, starting at 2 o'clock Eastern on that day. So we've been busy, Deb and I, in the office over the last 3 weeks. Our academic year ends on August 31st, 2023. And so starting after Labor Day long weekend, we start looking at the scholarship winners and determining who's going to win all of these medals. We've got that process finished now. We've determined who has won all of the scholarships. We've got our graduate list in order. And so now we're just working on how to notify everybody. And so we're hoping that by the Thanksgiving weekend, everyone, including teachers and students, families, will have notification that they've won some sort of award with an official invite and all details, inviting them to come to Convocation. And we hope that those of you that are at least close by can join us. And I'll be reaching out to many of you personally as well to invite you and see if you can join us. And we can plan some fun for that weekend. Now, pardon me. Any questions about Convocation, or again, anything else I'm saying, just throw that in the chat box for the Q&A. The teacher and student portals have been active now for over a year, which is really great. We've learned a lot over this process. We're still developing and tweaking new things. I think you'll find that it's going to just get better and better. The old academic records have long been migrated over to the new system. So as teachers, you'll be able to log into your teacher portal and you'll see all past exams for your students going back to about 2008, which is the last time that we did this kind of operation. Examiners now work digitally, processing and marking results in digital forms within the examiner portal, something most of you have never seen and probably won't see, but it allows everything to be processed very quickly and accurately. And we were able to turn around results in a few cases this past June, the same day, so that a student was having an exam in the morning, the examiner was happy with their results, was able to process them straight to the admin side of our portal that morning. And in the afternoon, Deb in the office would vet those things, and a notification would get sent to the student's email right away. And so there were a few people that noticed that, gee, the same day I was able to get results. That's a bit unusual. I would say in over 90% of the cases, those results are getting turned over in 24 to 72 hours, depending on the day of the week and what the queue was of results. When we were really busy, obviously, it would take a little bit longer. And of course, some of you will note that for the partial exams, partial 7, 8, 9, 10, we had some difficulty in the database. And so it would take us sometimes 2 or 3 weeks to vet those results, get the certificates generating correctly. All of that development things we were able to fix over the summer with the help of our ITC company. They were able to fix these little glitches and things that we had noticed. And this should run much more smoothly. So I would suspect that 99% of all results this coming year will get processed within 3 days, if not less. And for flex exams, you may notice results the same day if you had an exam in the morning, which is a huge improvement, much more reliable than snail mail and results getting transferred. Students can generate the reports instantly through their portal, and so can teachers, so that you can read the comments coherently without having to decipher an examiner's handwriting, that kind of thing. All wonderful improvements. We've seen your feedback. If anyone has any feedback for us, just throw it in the chat box now, or feel free to email me. We're curious to know how you're finding the experience with the new portals and what we can do to improve. It's quite costly to make improvements, but we're prioritizing things, and we have a budget set aside so that every year we can make some enhancements to how we do things. Registrations for 2024, we ran into some difficulty in that we're letting everybody just register all over the place. But now in terms of whether it's a flex exam or a seasonal exam, By a seasonal exam, I mean the winter February session or the spring June session. Going forward, we're going to narrow the choices down so that students registering for a February or a June exam will do so knowing that there's a high likelihood that they have an in-person exam coming. If students want an online exam, they will only register for a flex exam going forward. And we're going to make that very clear through the portals. But students wanting that in-person exam, they're no longer going to have 100 choices for city or town when they register in terms of the location. There are going to be very few choices so that you know exactly where these exams could be held. Sometimes we were running into problems this past year where students were registering and the system makes it look like they can hold an exam anywhere and everywhere. So we're going to be streamlining that so that it makes more sense both for us and for users, so there are no surprises. Teachers, I don't know if you know this through your exam portal or through your teacher portal, but you can actually register your students on their behalf. You can even pay for it on their behalf and invoice them later, or you can simply make the registration so that you know they are registered for the correct exam. It's often easier for you to do that than relay the information to a family. And then you can save it as a draft application or a draft registration, and then invite the student and the family to go in and pay for it themselves. So that's something you can experiment with. We did have a few difficulties and glitches last year, but those have all been solved to the best of our knowledge. And so we hope that you take advantage of that should you find that system a little bit more friendly and easier to use when it comes to registering. I think everything else I've talked about there, those are some of the changes or things that we're looking at and dealing with here. Again, when it comes to these portals, always tweaking and adjusting things, especially when it comes to things like certificates and results being generated coherently. In terms of online practical exams, what we're noticing, we have a few dedicated online examiners that are using both the MIDI technology and the Zoom platform. Most of our online exams are held over the Zoom platform. A few of you have been using the MIDI technology from Time Warp Technologies. The software is called Internet MIDI. That's for connecting two digital pianos digitally so that the examiner and the student can effectively share sounds. Everything that the student plays comes live out of the teacher's keyboard as if the student is sitting right there. And it's quite handy. I use it myself with a fair number of the exams. But for those that have acoustic pianos or the student is running the exam from their own home, that's where Zoom has come in quite handy. I don't know, and I don't feel that the technology has changed all that much. Zoom has made some enhancements, but by and large, what we're finding is the students that are running these Zoom exams from their own home are somewhat at risk. There's a lot of them haven't really, it's obvious that maybe at least half have not taken the time to ensure that their connection is solid, their hardware is good, that they're using their best device. And so we're finding, for about half of the Zoom exams we do, we are taking time with students to make sure that they've got something that's broadcasting so that we can hear them more fairly. And so what I'm asking teachers to consider, and I'm sure a number of you on this call and watching after the fact do this already, is to host the online exams at your studio so that you can control the quality. What we used to hear back in 2007, 2008, when we started online exams is, well, the quality, we can't use acoustic pianos. Well, now we can, but still the quality, in my estimation anyway, is suffering a little bit. And there are some students that are able to pull it off and then they do examine well from their own home. They've got good internet connectivity. They have good hardware. They're aware of how to use an external microphone and they're aware of the audio settings. But by and large, most students aren't even aware to turn on original sound. We have a number of students joining exams from their iPhone. In some cases, the iPhone is the best device they have when we test things out. But in a lot of cases, they're not using their best device, or it's just not well suited to the exam. We can usually find a workaround, but I want to do some educating on that to help users out. And I think that's what I'm planning for next Friday's webinar, is to talk and do a primer about online Zoom exams, how to use the latest technology within Zoom, and give people that information so that either you can look at it yourselves as teachers and decide if it's better for you to host them at yours, or if you want to simply get your families to watch that short webinar so that they understand better how to broadcast audio so that they can increase the quality. We understand that a lot of families, I think, want the convenience of having the exam from their own home. Students can play on their own piano. The quality of the instruments, I think, has improved since the beginning of the pandemic in terms of people getting their pianos tuned, etc. But I'm going to try and create something next Friday for those families and for yourselves that want a primer on Zoom that's easy to understand, and some practical tips and tricks for how to broadcast a better exam on that front. So that's what my slide here deals with. The internet MIDI software is a great option where digital pianos are available. I still think that's one of the better options, but we know that some students aren't used to playing on a digital. And in fact, in my studio, my small studio, if I do have a student do an exam, I have them do it on the acoustic, and I do broadcast over Zoom as well. But I use the internet MIDI software in my digital piano for the ear training, so that goes off quite well. That's one area of the exam where I think things really suffer, is in the oral tests. When students are trying to broadcast from their own home, it's quite difficult for them to hear and to be heard over the Zoom platform if they don't have a really good setup and haven't thought things out. A couple other thoughts there on the slide that you can see. Anyone has any questions about Zoom exams or how those handle, let me know. Of course, we're going to continue to offer Zoom exams from students' homes using acoustic pianos, whatever works, because we understand that convenience is probably foremost in people's minds these days. Now, the CI, the Contemporary Idioms Classical Piano Hybrid Exam, this is something we've been offering for a number of years, but never really advertised it correctly. I think maybe what I'll do here is I'm going to stop sharing for a second, or I'm not going to stop sharing. I'm going to take you over to the website just so you can see where we've got this information. See if I can get out of there. Here's our homepage of the website for those of you watching. Learning tab at the top middle. Let's go to Contemporary Piano. This is the Contemporary Idioms Piano page where you can see all the syllabus files. Right here, mix and match option. We've added this right on the website so people can see it clearly. And also in any of the syllabus files, right at the beginning of the syllabus, you'll now see the mix and match, what we call the mix and match option, or I should call the hybrid option, really. Students registering for Contemporary Idioms exam may mix and match CI repertoire with classical skills in the following manner. To take advantage of this, and this is for those students that want contemporary repertoire, they're not into minuets and sonatinas anymore for whatever reason, but you're happy, or you're most comfortable with the familiarity of the classical skills. Technique, sight reading, ear training. Improv scares people. Playing modes as scales is a bit scary, and sometimes there's a lot more work to do there. Reading lead sheets is a little bit unfamiliar. This is the option students can choose, and I'd say most of our students are now doing this hybrid exam where they have to register for a CI piano exam, not a classical exam. They play the 4 repertoire choices as per the CI syllabus, and then you prepare the skills requirements as per the classical piano syllabus at the same level. So students have to do all of technique, sight reading, ear training, keyboard skills from the classical syllabus, none of the improv, lead sheet reading, technique, sight reading, ear training of the contemporary syllabus. And that's I think pretty clearly laid out here. Most of you have noticed the marking scheme changes. When a student does this hybrid exam, the marking scheme changes and things are marked a little differently than you'll see in the CI syllabus. If anyone wants that, at some point we're going to find a coherent way to advertise what that marking scheme is. Just haven't quite done that yet. And thanks for your patience in regard to that. So that's the hybrid option, or something we call the mix and match option for contemporary idioms. I'm just going to go back to my slideshow here. If there are any questions about that, let me know. Oh, the big thing with that is when you're choosing that option for every contemporary idioms piano exam, the first question that an examiner should ask of the student is, have you prepared classical or contemporary skills today? And so students should be well rehearsed on how to answer that question. Most students don't know, actually, they just do what the teacher tells them. But if you could just coach them in that way, examiners are also trained to ask, so they know a couple of key questions to ask to get that feedback, so they know which choice to make on their exam form. But it's helpful for the students to know that there is that choice and distinction between the two. As part of the Contemporary Idioms Piano syllabus, we started offering teacher meetings a couple of years ago, and we're going to continue these. They're led by our Director of Teacher Outreach, Dawn Keim, and she is willing to meet with teachers every third Thursday of the month, starting in October. So the first meeting will be on October 19th this year. We have a Zoom link that we start to distribute. You'll start to see that in your emails in a couple of weeks. I know you're all here because of the emails, and so that's our best way to keep in touch with you. We're constantly updating those email addresses using our database. So if your email address changes, the only way we can get a hold of you is if you update your email address in your teacher portal. And that gives you access to all of these registration links and ways of connecting with us. And you'll also know when the webinars are happening and when these teacher meetings are happening. She can answer your questions. These are very informal meetings. Usually between 3 and 12 teachers join every week, and they talk about different things about improv. Lately, they started focusing on lead sheets and a little bit more on sourcing repertoire and creating your own arrangements. So lots of help there for teachers that are curious about the contemporary idioms piano syllabus, but maybe aren't quite sure of a few of the facets. This is a great group to meet in on. These are not recorded, but I'm going to talk to Dawn and see if she's willing to record them this year, and see if we can make those available to anyone in case they're just interested in the information. They're more like a mini workshop each week or each month on a variety of topics related to that syllabus. Okay, digital badge is my favorite thing to talk about over the last year. We rolled these out in 2022, and in 2023, participation doubled. However, it's still not where we want it to be. We think that we've noticed exam numbers have been declining. We all know that. We've seen that over the past couple of decades or more. Every year, there's this little decline. It's getting harder and harder to convince students to be able to sit a full exam. And our data is starting to show us, because now we have this new database, that it's the older teenagers that are suddenly just absolutely unable to take an exam, it seems. This is where digital badges comes in. It's a way to keep these students engaged a little bit in the assessment process by getting an unbiased assessment, and gives them a gold, silver, or bronze standing for submitting 3 pieces of repertoire pre-recorded on video. Some of the benefits of this system: it provides a performance goal for a student that needs it, provides a goal for the student that's maybe used to doing an exam or is thinking about doing an exam but needs a softer commitment. This is certainly that kind of thing, and you can spread it out over the whole year or as long as you want in terms of how you make the recordings. It eliminates the pressure of live performance, which is or isn't a good thing, but for a lot of students nowadays, they just don't have the time to commit to the preparation involved to work on the performance skill to create a live performance. And a great alternative I'm seeing in my studio is for students to engage in performance skill where they have more control over the performance. It allows them, when you're doing recordings, to listen back and get really picky and quite critical with themselves quite quickly. They still get nervous because when they're on their 3rd week in a row trying to record a piece of music and it's not working, it opens up the conversation and allows them to go quite a bit deeper than an exam does, actually, I'm finding. On an exam, they can just get the mark and run. The digital badge, they have to live with that recording. And when we assess these, we can watch them multiple times. So we get the assessment right, like really good. It's a little bit better than an exam or a music festival where an adjudicator, an examiner is often trying to control many variables at once. And so it's very easy to miss things. With digital badge, we can watch the recording multiple times to make sure we've got the assessment right and make sure that we're being incredibly helpful in our comments. And so, as an examiner, as a festival adjudicator, I love the digital badge format as an assessor, because I'm much more confident in what I'm sharing with the student and that I know it's going to be accurate and hopefully helpful. Students can have control over creating their ideal performances this way. They can work at their own pace. The commitment is a little bit softer in some ways. The feedback is more detailed and accurate, I feel. Students learn to self-critique and really own their own work. And it provides a realistic first step for students who want to think about assessments more seriously, think about a full certificate exam more seriously, gives them an idea of what's involved, maybe gets them ready for a recital. They can give them feedback in advance of a festival or an exam. It doesn't matter. There's so many applications for this format. Once they submit the 3 links, they have to submit 3 URLs through the teacher or the student portal. We can go in and assess it rather quickly in a matter of a few days. And the student is given a gold, silver, or bronze standing with a relevant digital badge. And you can see a copy of the digital badge top right there that they can either download and use however they want. They can print it off. They can show it off on social media, whatever they want to do with it. A gold standing represents something, in terms of a traditional exam assessment, something over 86% or higher. There's quite a bit of detail involved in their performance. Somewhere between 75 and 85 is a silver standard, and then below 75 is a bronze standard. And sometimes if students don't pass, they just simply they're not ready to meet that standard. We haven't seen that yet. They can still resubmit anytime for about half of the fee of the digital badge. They can resubmit all of their repertoire or some of it to be reassessed to raise their standard. It's another neat feature of the digital badge. So let's move on to the next topic here. And theory exams. This is just a short one. I wanted to talk about, there is some confusion out there about what resources to use. Are you still publishing the theory books? This kind of thing. So I think I've got copies here, so I can make this really clear. This is what we've been using since 1999, the theory for students. This is still being published and will for a long time. This is still a good resource, a nice thick book, perhaps a little bit dated. There's a lot there, a lot of exercises. It matches our curriculum very well. So you can still use that. A nice, I think, a very viable alternative that we started advocating for a couple of years ago is Deborah Wanless's Total Theory. She took James Lawless's old theory system or series, republished it herself with a bunch of tweaks, and she's given us many webinars that you can see back on the YouTube channel. If you're curious about Total Theory, I think it's a really good modern alternative. The price of the book is a little bit less, a little bit more concise. It's not geared specifically to Conservatory Canada exams, but what she's done is she's taken this information at each level, theory 1, 2, 3, and 4, and she's created a supplement that you can find on our website. And if you use the supplement in combination with the book, the supplement is free. It's pretty much 100 pages for each level. She's put a lot of work into this. You get all sorts of extra examples and things just to fill in the blanks and make clear what the requirements are for, specifically for the CC exam. Let's take a look at that for a second. I want to show you where those supplements are. So again, back to the website on the Learning tab. If we go to Theory and History, you're going to see some syllabus downloads here. And next to Theory 1, or over here on the left side, you're going to see Total Theory 1 Supplement. If you're working with a student using the Total Theory textbook and you're working toward Theory 1, it shows you a copy of what that book looks like, but then the supplementary material. And in here, how many pages do we have? 84 pages. Tables where everything can be found on what page, all sorts of really neat stuff, extra practice, clarifying some of the terms, all sorts of things. A really good modern resource, I think. What I'm telling you is, new teachers, go ahead and use Total Theory. I think you'll find it a little bit easier than our old book. Those of you that are familiar with the older books and still like them, we plan to keep publishing them for the near future. And you can keep using those as well. Both are good for CC exams in terms of theory. The definitions in both of the books are a little bit different. You can use definitions from either one. Our examiners, our theory markers know to watch for those differences. You can also use a musical dictionary. It doesn't have to be exactly as we stated in these texts. Do not use the metronome as a guide. That's something that came up a couple times from various teachers last year. They were using the metronome as a guide as to what the definitions were, because you see those Italian terms printed on the metronome. I wouldn't use that. And then I've got a little bullet point about teaching intervals. I'm not going to go through that today. Let's go to CC exams and accommodations for students that have exceptionalities, neurodiverse students. For example, we did a webinar on that, and I plan to have more in that vein in the new year here. Accommodations are based on testing with documentation given by school boards by a health professional. So if you have a student that has some documentation and you're wanting to find a way to look for an accommodation on a CC exam because of something that they are experiencing, whether they simply need more time, they need something presented in an alternative language, you just want examiners to be aware that there's a diagnosis at play. Our examiners are pretty well trained and they're pretty good at looking for, because of their own teaching experience and knowing how to assist these students so that they can be successful in these pressure situations. Teachers or parents can alert our office for consideration. And examiners are trained to look for this kind of thing and can present the information in a variety of formats. So that's something that we're happy to do. Just let us know in advance, and we can work with an examiner to make something happen on behalf of or for the benefit of the student and the family. Teacher parents can be encouraged to gently assist where necessary right inside the exam. It's something that we're happy to offer if that's something that could be helpful. Okay, going on the YouTube channel. So again, webinars happen every Friday at noon Eastern. I think most of you on this call understand that. Spread the word, though. I think this is something that may be a little bit underutilized when I look at the number of views. I'd like to see more views on there. I think a lot of people know about it, but a lot of people don't. And, honestly, Conservatory Canada, we're always operating on a shoestring budget. We have for 135 years now. Our funder of last resort is this large endowment fund that we have, but it's not always easy, especially in harder times when markets aren't doing as well, to access that money. And so, we're at the point where we could use a little love, honestly. And I think that We could use your exams. We understand that exams are a little bit difficult sometimes to sell to the majority of students. And I would guess that the majority of teachers can, it's very difficult to even get 5 students to do an exam in a year from your studio. And some of our numbers show that it's less than 5% of all students in our studios are actually suited to doing an exam these days. That's where the digital badge comes in handy. And we hope that more teachers will take that up in the coming year. But we could certainly use the revenue from more exams and more digital badges. It's something that you'll hear me asking for from time to time. And if you could spread the word, especially for the digital badges, to your colleagues that maybe don't use Conservatory Canada yet, or to give us a second look on the YouTube channel, there are dedicated playlists for those teachers that want to bridge the gap. And maybe I'll just take you over to that again now so you can see what that looks like, so you know what to show people. The other thing too is that, I've been talking to teachers who want more in terms of marketing from CC. And, we don't really have the budget to start doing marketing the way that some other institutions do. And sometimes it's hard to actually find that target market. Here you can see this is the live stream right now. It's slightly delayed from where we are in our webinar. But this is the CCTV YouTube channel. And I'm just going to back up here from there. Oh, it's wanting me to sign in. Hang on. Let's go to a different place. I'm going to go to homepage. From the homepage of the website, we scroll down, you'll see digital badges here. You can actually download the syllabus. I meant to show you this earlier. Also about digital badges, we're going to plan to roll out voice and guitar digital badges in the coming few months here. So watch for that if you're curious about that. And then also on the homepage right below that, the CCTV YouTube channel, there's a couple of links. If you just click on the arrow, it brings you straight to the homepage. And within here, there's the home tab, the top left. You can see the live stream there. That's where you can watch these live if you don't register on Zoom, if you don't want to be part of the live audience and ask questions. Videos. Often the live tab is the easiest if you're trying to find things in chronological order from the latest to the most distant past. You will find all of them listed there more in order of how they were presented. But then in the playlists, if you have new teachers that you want to promote CC to, get them to go to this playlist here for new teacher webinars. And you see I've got 10 of them listed there now in the bottom left. And there's a contemporary idioms webinar. There's a classical piano syllabus webinar. There's a digital badge piano webinar. There are little tutorials on keyboard harmony that you can find on the classical piano syllabus page. There's American Popular Piano tutorials for the improv requirement. All those things are there. And then the other place that I think new teachers might benefit from looking at first under playlists are the mock exams. There's mock exam webinar replays. We did 4 mock exams 2 years ago. And each one of them has a mock exam, which you can find under the mock exam playlist. They're just short 20-minute exams of actual exams that are taking place. And then I go through for 40 or 45 minutes in the mock exam webinar replay and go step by step on how it was assessed and answer questions and that kind of thing. That's a great place, I think, to send potential families, teachers that you think would really like what we do. We try to do things on a really friendly basis. We're very accessible. We try to accommodate. We just want to promote talent potential in these musicians, whether they're young or old. And so this is a great way to promote us, I think, is using the YouTube channel so that people can see that we're a bona fide accredited organization. And like I said, we're looking for more love from you all. And our main source of revenue are the exams and the digital badges. And we hope that you'll be able to support us in a big way going forward. So I think that's about all I had to say today. If I go back to my slideshow. Oh yeah, coming up then. So what I'd like to do next Friday is propose, unless anyone has a topic that they want to post here in the chat or the Q&A for me, of something they'd like to see happen at one of these sessions, please do that anytime or by email. But next week, what I'm proposing is to do a short session as sort of a primer for Zoom exams, something you can show your family, something you can look through yourselves to just go over the latest Zoom technology. We have a couple of technical documents that are still on our website that talk about all the ins and outs of Zoom. That's pretty good, but it's quite detailed. I'd like just to summarize that all in maybe a 20-minute information session. I can answer questions. And so you'll see that as next week's webinar. And then beyond that, that takes us to Friday, October 13th, I believe it is. It doesn't seem right, but yeah, it is. Friday, October 13th, we're going to have Eleanor Gummer. and Cecile Desrosiers join us, and they're going to talk about the music of Louise Parenque, using all the publications or all the pieces, some of the pieces in this book here, her Opus 50, Étude Facile. This is published by Eleanor's One Eye Publications. And so it'll be all about the music in this book, if any of you have seen it. And they're going to give us a great repertoire session. I've got Roland Canada probably coming on at the end of October to talk about a couple of their new keyboards that they're excited to share. Keyboards that are not all that costly, in the $1,500 range, that have all sorts of wonderful built-in features that I think you would find great for contemporary music and recording and doing voiceovers and interesting things like this. I look forward to seeing that myself. So we hope to have them by the end of October. A bunch of contacts that I made while I was in Chicago in July, we hope to have on the teachers that created Piano Safari, a great American method that's been making the rounds and looks really good to my eye. They're going to come on and present Piano Safari for us also in October, toward the end of October. And then a whole host of other things. I've got new music, new contemporary music that's being written with great backing tracks that I've sourced from a guy called Brock Chart, and books that I purchased. Really, really interesting stuff. Dr. Price, who's out of one of the Carolina universities, who has a great book on autism and teaching piano to autistic kids. He wants to come on and share information about his book and his research. I think you'll find that very interesting. I'm trying to think of who else. Dr. Vanessa Cornett at University of St. Thomas in Minnesota wants to come on and share a couple of sessions of her research, and a whole bunch of other people got lined up. So new faces you're going to see both this fall and in the new year. And I hope you can join us for most of these Fridays live and ask questions. I'm just wondering if anyone here has any questions. I haven't looked lately at the Q&A. You're such a good audience. You just seem to let me ramble on. And I just assume I'm covering everything well to your satisfaction. So I don't see any questions. But I'd like to thank each of you for sharing or for coming and listening today. Does anyone have any thoughts, anything they're experiencing, anything you want to chat about? I can also bring you on live if you don't like typing in the chat box. Just use the raise your hand feature and I can bring you on live and we can chat for a moment about whatever you're experiencing. I'm sure things are changing. It would be nice to hear from you about how things are changing in your studios now that things are sort of back to normal. What are you noticing among the young students? What's it like teaching beginners again? I know that's something I've been doing a little bit more of lately, and I find it quite rewarding, although it has changed. So I'd be curious to get your feedback on all of these things, either right now or in the coming weeks, as we open up these sessions a bit more and we get through this sort of what I call the preseason this week and next week. And like I said, our regular season for the webinars will start on October 13th with Eleanor and Cecile, who will be here probably about 6 times throughout the year to show us different music by women composers that they're discovering, music that has been forgotten or suppressed over time, and that Eleanor is publishing and trying to bring to light. So not seeing any questions. Thanks for joining me. Corinne saying students really enjoyed the digital badges. That's good to hear. A great plug for those, and thanks for using those with the students. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for today. Hope you all have a great weekend. Hope your teaching's going well here as we start the academic year. And we'll look forward to connecting with you next Friday. Bye for now.